Choice items are some of the most commonly used items in competitive Pokemon. This may confuse a new player though. Being locked into one move sounds awful, but the drawback of it is actually quite negligible. Since switching is as common as me disappointing my parents, it ends up making the immediate boost given to a stat all the more useful. That boost is only a 1.5 times boost though. Why would you even want to use that? I mean, no one uses Howl. Oh god, you poor puppy used on Magenta. Okay, all but one Pokemon who has the move pool variety of the things I jerk off to don't use Howl. Howl gives the user a single boost to your attack. This boost also comes with the extra benefit of using your entire moveset. Hell, Swords Dance is used by a lot of Pokemon for this reason, since its +2 boost actually makes it usable. In that case, why is Choice Band the most common means of boosting attack? Well, it's because Choice Band boosts your attack instantly. Time is money in competitive Pokemon, so a turn you spend setting up is a turn your opponent can use to take advantage of that. As such, Choice Band removes that barrier since you don't need to take a risk that would otherwise kill your Pokemon. Okay though, you probably didn't need to be lectured about why choice items are used. If you're enough of a virgin to have found my channel, which I thank you for, then that means that you're probably familiar with choice items. It probably also means that if you're familiar with the subject of this video, which is why I went on that long explanation for the newbies in the audience. In that case, why use a status move with a choice item? Choice items boost your offensive stats, whether it's attack, special attack, or speed. So why would you not take advantage of that? That's a good question, my big Metapod friend, although I must stress that my Metapod is larger. Sorry about that, it's just that my horn is more important to toot. It's also important to toot the horns of the players who found creative ways to make status moves viable on choice-locked Pokemon. Before we get to that though, we may as well tackle the status moves that even a disabled person would think of using. Of these, Trick is the most common and is seen on a variety of Pokemon such as Latios. Sure, on an offensive Pokemon, you can easily play around being locked into a move, but if you give the item to a defensive Pokemon, then they're practically removed from the equation. Defensive Pokemon are good primarily because of their move pool, which is why something with stats as mediocre as Clefable has been able to commit various war crimes throughout the history of competitive Pokemon. That's exactly why severing Clefable's limbs through Trick is so much more satisfying than hitting it with a stupidly strong attack, which probably would have been soaked by something else anyway. Yeah, given how prediction-reliant choice items are, it does mean that removing the item against a stall team can make you much more threatening to said team. Although, I'd say this is only truly applicable to choice scarf users, whose speed boost won't matter against a stall team anyway. To continue the train of easy moves to figure out though, Healing Wish is a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you want to heal a teammate to full when you're on low health? This is particularly good on choice scarf users, like Latios, since their extra speed allows them to more consistently hit the Healing Wish and use it to let their win condition run rampant later on. It's for this reason that this move has always been a staple status move on choice item users. Everything else I'll mention from here on out is a bit more creative, but this one could still be thought of by a child. This is Sleep Talk. Since sleep moves are so good, absorbers to said sleep moves are hard to come by. That's why many choice item users opt to run Sleep Talk. Sleep Talk is a move that allows you to use any random move in your kit while you're asleep, which allows you to keep attacking even when asleep. The reason this works best on choice item users is that they don't need to rely on their move pool variety as much. They can afford the loss in variety because, by the end of the day, they're still going to do a lot of damage. I'd say the only generation where this was super popular though was Black and White due to how popular Sleep was. It's funny too because Sleep ended up being so powerful that it was banned, meaning that Pokemon like Latios would go from running Sleep Talk to being boring and using Trick instead. It should also be noted though that Sleep was nerfed in XY, as grass types are now immune to powder moves, which a good chunk of Sleep moves are. It's because of this that Sleep Talk is still an option for choice item users, but is considerably more niche. At the very least though, you'll still see it a good amount in ADV and DPP, especially DPP since Breloom is so scary. Funnily enough too, Breloom is so good in DPP that a guts boosted Sleep Talk Heracross of Choice Band, despite being niche, is still used because of how hard it shuts Breloom down. Now that's just crazy. If Sleep Talk was generation specific though, the Baton Pass is ultra generation specific. For those of you who don't know, Baton Pass is banned in every generation of OU except for ADV. One thing I will note though is that it is allowed in the DPP lower tier metagames. There is a caveat to that nevertheless, and it's that Baton Pass is only legal when limited to one Pokemon, and you can't pass speed and another stat. Passing stats is for nerds though, so let's talk about dry passing. Dry passing refers to using Baton Pass without any boosts. This may seem to break the point of even using Baton Pass, but it does have its uses. It does this as a pivoting move. It may not do much damage, like U-turn, but it does still switch the user, which allows for safe positioning that you couldn't achieve otherwise. It's for this reason that Baton Pass is often seen on choice band users in ADV, a generation where U-turn didn't exist. It's through this method that choice band users can scout their opponent's Pokemon and habits, and use that knowledge to later create better predictions and win off that. It's for that reason that Baton Pass is a surprisingly great option when paired with a choice band. If you don't believe me either, then you will when I tell you that this move alone was enough for Dodrio, of all things, to get a niche in OU. Now that's quite impressive. Despite this though, it did take time to discover, as dry passing wasn't legitimized until after U-turn proved how good pivoting was in DPP. As such, let's look for moves that took even longer to find use on choice items. Of these, they're status conditions, which, despite not dealing any damage, have plenty of use cases. Toxic is frequently used as it helps non-trick users cripple walls while keeping their item. If you want a really bizarre example of this, I used this move on Mothim in DPP7U just to screw over the Togetic wallet. Back to being normal though, Will-O-Wisp was used for this same reason until it was nerfed in Sun and Moon. Stuff like Bayonet used it in ADV, although that's also partially because Bayonet has a worse move pool than my sex life. The final status to find use though was Thunder Wave, which could help slow down any revenge killer trying to switch into you, being mostly used by Choice Band and Choice Specs users, given how Choice Scarf users are already fast. So yeah, these really were that simple, so let's continue being simple. Entry hazards are other popular moves on choice item users, but that wasn't always the case. Given how spikes never had the best distribution, most spikes users weren't able to pack a choice item. That was until Greninja was unbanned in Sun and Moon. The reason why spikes are so good on Ash Greninja's choice spec set is because spikes would apply pressure on the opponent. This means that if the opponent switches into something that can somehow wall it, then Greninja would still be getting the last laugh. Seeing how valuable this has been, we've been seeing a resurgence of Pokemon running entry hazards in their choice item users. Despite this, it's still not all that common with Stealth Rock, given how a more consistent setter is significantly more important with how much Stealth Rock needs to be laid out each game. Don't let that fool you though. A friend noted to me that Choice Band Gulurks uses Stealth Rock in Black and White RU and NU, so it's still plenty useful. As such, entry hazards are now another staple status move on choice item Pokemon. Let's talk about the other side of the coin though, in hazard removal. Now Defog is far more common on choice item users, and the reason for this is that hazard removal is far more important than hazard setting. Your choice-locked Defog user probably wouldn't even be your main user, but simply a last resort if your original one was already worn down through Stealth Rock damage. Just like with Healing Wish 2, Defog is primarily used on Choice Scarf users since the extra speed allows for more consistent defogs. Of course, the most popular user of this was Landorus Therian, since its typing and Intimidate gave it solid longevity alongside its speed. This was honestly kinda crazy considering just how fast the discovery was, but it made sense too given just how good it is, as a response to the last trend we discussed. This new trend also started in USUM, come to think of it. With Choice Scarf Taunt, you can prevent either Stealth Rock or Defog, which is oftentimes more useful than attacking. Yeah, the hazard metagame got absolutely absurd by this point. Granted, Taunt isn't used all too often, mainly being used by the more support-focused Tapu Fini, although its niche is still very legitimate. Now though, we're at the options that are so niche that not even I could have thought of them, which is why I want to thank my friends for coming up with these ideas for me. The first of these is weather. Setting weather with a choice item sounds like a very niche last resort, but it exists, apparently. Again, Choice Scarf users do this the most consistently, but I genuinely don't know why you'd want to resort to it at all. Maybe you would want to run it in the rain-dominated meta of DPPUU, or even to remove sand once Tyranitar is killed off in ADVOU, but that's all that really comes to mind. Why the fuck would you use Substitute with the Choice Band? That was what I asked when a friend noted it to me. That's why, when I heard of the explanation, my mind was blown. Despite being extremely niche, Choice Band Substitute Dugtrio can be used on an opponent with Perish Son activated to stall them out and defeat them, being something that works because of Dugtrio's Arena Trap ability preventing the opponent from switching, and Dugtrio being fast enough to be able to reliably spam Substitute against its victims. Sure, this is extremely niche, but it's genuinely really cool, and it's stuff like this that makes ADVOU such an interesting tier. Continuing on the extremely niche ADV stuff, Screech is a supporting move, and Aerodactyl and Dugtrio sometimes use it in ADVOU. This can be used to disrupt a Calm Mind or Curse Sweep, and get your team back in the game. Again, this works because Dugtrio and Aerodactyl are both incredibly fast, being able to guarantee the Screech on the opponents they need to hit. If you thought that was crazy though, then don't even get me started on Mimic. Now, this is so niche that it hasn't truly been used in tournaments, but if you want to switch in Dugtrio to a Skarmory like a goddamn idiot, then you can take advantage of that by using Mimic to get a layer of spikes on the field. This can help you potentially take more risks with your own Skarmory, but I don't think this is as good as just using your own Skarmory in the matchup. Maybe some good ADV players could educate me on this, but for now, that's all I have to say. You know, I promised that the end screen would no longer be a Google slide, but I guess I forgot to realize that I could afford to keep it that way when the end screens were never meant to be visually impressive anyway. Now you guys just have to hear the dumb things that come out of my mouth, and I won't use seizure-inducing visuals to entice you this time. I wish I had a reason that grand for doing this, but the truth is that after spending ages on a video, I just get lazy by the end point. Outside of this end screen though, everything in this video was 100% done with my new editing software. It's baffling just how much better my videos look now, especially considering that I'm putting in the exact same amount of effort that I did before. PCs truly are a beast. If you did notice something though, it's that I'm still using my $15 phone mic to record this video. The headset mic turned out to be kinda bad, and while it was fine for the unscripted video I released a few days ago, I want to have better audio quality for my scripted stuff. That's precisely why I bought a new microphone, which set me back $80. So let's pray to Arceus that it actually makes my audio sound better. I wouldn't have even been able to buy it though without the help of my wonderful Patreon supporters, such as my NFE patrons Filthy Cubone and Jesse, OU patrons Regimania, J3 Puffin, Eternum, Torkin Peter, Mystic Owl, and Yoshi64, alongside my wonderful Ubers patron Plasma Energize. As always, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you all in my next video.